Boston, there's only one. Hi there, Coach Sage with SageRunning.com here with another training talk. Today we're going to talk about how to pace race day execution for the Boston Marathon. It's a very special event, near and dear to my heart. Done it a couple times competitively, and I want to talk about kind of the strategies that I've seen success in this particular race because it's such a great event for U.S. marathon running, and it's got a lot of history, which really makes it unique, as well as having to qualify for it. And I know a lot of you, Sandy and I have heard back from you about getting your BQ or getting even a sub 3 hour marathon using our SageRunning.com BQ plans, which I'll link to at the end of this, as well as in the description below. But really always cool to hear that feedback with the plans that Coach Sandy and I have been making, and actually been updating our 10K plan as well as working up to the half marathon plans. And there's ultra plans too, but I am really confident, a lot more confident talking about marathon training and pacing, just because there's more consistency on the roads usually, apart from like 100-mile mountain ultra trail running, where there's a lot of variables that I've gotten personally wrong. The Boston Marathon, marathons in general, I feel are a lot more straightforward, at least in my experience. And I will tell you though, the first time I raced the Boston Marathon, I was running for this professional road running group, Hanson's Brooks Distance Project. Smashed training, 7 weeks in a row, averaging like 130 miles a week. Thought I was super fit. In reality, probably overtrained, and came out and laid an egg at Boston on a perfect weather day. This is back in 2010 when I first ran Boston. It wasn't a race day execution problem so much as it was, I think, overtraining going into it. Whereas last time I ran the Boston Marathon in 2015, coming off of some ultras and mixing any service, any distance, it was a really crappy weather day, and I was able to run probably the best marathon performance of my life, getting 16th place overall, running 2:19:12. And I'll show you some Strava snapshots of the map, kind of the route we take, as well as run through the race, checkpoint by checkpoint, 5K, 10K, half splits, kind of talking about the undulation, the hills, which make Boston unique, the crowds, which could also ruin your race or make your race, as well as the weather and pacing strategy and things like that, and what I've learned from successful running at Boston, as well as coaching. Sandy and I have been coaching a lot of people that have raced Boston as well and had success there. So let's get started. So the first thing about Boston, we'll pull up the elevation map there, is it is a net downhill race. That doesn't make it lightning fast though. It is still a Olympic trials qualifying race. It's still a BQ qualifying race, and it still counts for your personal best, even though it's a net downhill, because you have these rolling uphills, the infamous Newton hills, roughly between mile 16 to mile 20, that really slow you down and could really screw you up. So the hills do add an extra challenge, and there's really not that many places on Boston that are perfectly flat. You've got this roaring downhill start, and we'll run through it from the start actually to get things all in perspective chronologically, kind of how you would attack the race, so to speak. So, the finish line's in downtown Boston. It's a lot of the athletes' villages. It's where most of the hotels are. It's where most people stay. And so race morning, you got to take a bus or somehow get to the starting line in Hopkinton, which is a good distance away because it's a point-to-point race, right? And the start time is later in the morning, though. It's a 10 a.m. start for the first wave. It used to be noon, which could create some problems. And this is having to do with the weather, because it's April in New England. You could have anything from cold, freezing rain, headwind, to hot 70, 80 degrees Fahrenheit, sunny with a tailwind, dry, humid, anything in between that spectrum. You got to be prepared for it. And with the 10 a.m. start time, it definitely could be really hot. It could get colder, progressively colder as the race goes on as well, if there's a storm brewing. So got to be prepared for that. Also, because you're running this point-to-point race, the weather could actually change fairly dramatically, as well as a slight wind direction change. You do make some slight turns at around mile 16 that could make a crosswind turn into a headwind for the last 10K and things like that. So you will notice you got to get to the starting line early. You still have to wake up pretty early, even though it's a 10 a.m. start. And you know, I always come prepared with an extra wide mouth Gatorade bottle or something like that in case that's a long bus ride. You might be overhydrated. You know, you might have to think about that, as well as wearing extra layers to the start. If it's cold and rainy, you might want a garbage bag or some plastic jackets or something you could throw away, a sweater you could donate or something, because it could be cold and you're standing out there waiting for a long time before the start. So starts in Hopkinton, see some footage of it there. And the start is a roaring downhill. The first kilometer especially is probably one of the biggest downhills, if not the biggest downhill in the course. And that being said, everyone's really excited at the start. So the general tendency is for people to start way too fast. And there is a little uphill after the first kilometer, but it still makes your first mile split really fast. The first 5K is very, very downhill. Even the first 10K is downhill. But if you look at the elevation rep, you see that first 5K is screaming downhill. People are really amped up. They go out way too fast. And there's a common theme in all marathon running. You never really want to go out really, really fast under your goal pace and try to bank time. But people try to do it because they're excited and it's very downhill. So it's very easy to go way too fast. And that being said, because it is downhill, you do want to take advantage of it a little. And your splits could be a little quick on that downhill. I was about 5 to 10 seconds per mile faster than my goal pace and my overall pace in that first 5K. And you see, we'll pull up the 5K split or 5K footage there. You're running on a slight downhill. And, you know, but if you're 30 seconds per mile or 20 seconds per kilometer too fast than your overall pace, you could easily blow out your quads. You could blow out your quads. You might not have a high heart rate. You might not be breathing hard. You're all amped up on adrenaline, but you will blow out your quads in that first 5K or 10K going way under goal pace or the pace that you plan on averaging, and you will destroy your race, because by the time you get later on in the race and you hit uphills and downhills, your quads will be shot. You will not be prepared for it. Unless you're an amazing downhill runner and you've trained extensively for downhills, which you should, you will probably have a rough time, as well as the normal effects of glycogen depletion and hitting the wall in a marathon, especially around 20-mile mark or 32 kilometers. You will notice it big time at Boston, because you will be hitting the Newton Hills and you will be struggling and slowing down exponentially, because Boston is really ruthless in that regard compared to like a pancake flat marathon like Chicago or something, which is hard in respect because it's a perfectly flat marathon basically. So pace yourself in the first 5K, 10K. Let's see, you're coming up on Framingham, I believe, at around 10K. I'll pull up a picture there. That was from my infamously struggling 2010 race with my buddy there, who actually ran 2:16 that day. We had a really good weather day. I think he was actually 16th place too, running 2:16 there. He actually was able to negative split the race, running the second half faster than the first. That's probably going to be hard for most of you to do, and it's not something I'd actually recommend. Because of the nature of the downhill first half, your first half could be a little bit faster than your second half. You will lose time in the Newton Hills. Depending on what pace range you're in, you might lose a minute on the Newton Hills because they are uphill. But if you could fly in that last 10K, you could really fly at Boston, and the crowds will amp you up. Passing a bunch of people really fast will amp you up. So keep that in mind. But we're talking about going through the race. 10K split could be a little fast. Again, 10 to 15 seconds per mile, maybe faster than what you want to average. No faster than that. That's like, 8 to 10 seconds, 6 to 10 seconds per kilometer faster. So maybe very slightly faster on some of the big downhill miles or kilometers, but nothing way under pace. And you're not going to be banking cushion minutes for your halfway split. So if you're trying to run under 3 hours maybe at Boston, you could come through the half in 1:28 or 1:29 and then try to, come back in 1:30 and run a 2:58 or 2:59. But you don't want to be going out in 1:25 and then you might run over 1:35 or 1:40 in the second half. So, things like that. You don't need to totally exaggerate it. And you will get excited because coming into the halfway point, 21 kilometers, 13.1 miles, you are around the Wellesley College area, and you will hear the college students screaming from over a mile away. You hear that noise, the crowd support, the screams. It gives me goosebumps every time coming up on the halfway point. Don't let the crowds excite you too much at that point, though, because you might run a crazy fast mile split. Save that for the last 10K when the crowd support is also awesome. But it's very exciting. Most of the students at Wellesley are out with signs. Some of them are inappropriate. I can't really repeat what they say on here, but it's a very exciting place, and it's around the halfway split. After that, mile 15 to 16, what is that, like 25 kilometers in, you got a roaring downhill. Roaring downhill, I think that's usually one of the fastest mile splits of the race, if not the first mile. You don't want it to be. You'd rather have one of your last miles in the 10K or the last 5 miles be one of your fastest, or even after Heartbreak, mile 21. But at mile 15, 16, you got this little downhill. It's fast. You might have your confidence up, but brace yourself because you are about to enter the Newton Hills. And the Newton Hills are really a series of about 4 uphills. They're not crazy bad uphills, but if you're having a bad day, it will turn into a really bad day through the Newton Hills. And this is where the wind could shift. You shift direction, you make a right-hand turn at this fire station, facing up onto the second big hill. The last big hill of the Newton Hills is the infamous Heartbreak Hill, and it happens to be right around the 20-mile mark, 32 kilometers into the race. It's about surviving the Newton Hills. You will run slower kilometer splits, slower mile splits, given the same effort through the Newton Hills. I think I lost, looking at my Strava data, I lost maybe 20, 30 seconds per mile on some of those mile splits through there. So it could easily be 10, 15, 20 seconds per kilometer, or yeah, like 30 seconds a mile slow through the Newton Hills because it's a net uphill. It's a lot of climbing. But when you get to the top at mile 20, 20 and a half, a little over 32 kilometers in, you're at the top of Heartbreak Hill. You will know it. People will have signs. They'll be cheering. And we'll pull up some pictures there of going up Heartbreak. Is really grinding at that point, trying to maintain pace. You will know exactly where you stand probably at the top of Heartbreak Hill. As you do in most marathons, you kind of know where you stand at the 21 mile mark, 32, 33 kilometer mark. Because if you have legs, if you still have legs and you've been hydrating well, fueling yourself well, you could really fly on this downhill after Heartbreak and into that last 10K where you have some little rollers, but it's a pretty much straight shot into town and you could be going very fast. If you're just maintaining pace, you're going to be winning, really, according to your game plan there. So, you know, have your legs safe for that, survive the Newton Hills, and you could really rip it in that last 10K. So there's a big downhill after Heartbreak. Come into a square, you take a left, and you're going up towards, well, you pass another college. Boston College is on that downhill, which is a very exciting place as well. But yeah, you survive the Newton Hills, and you know, you're in that last 10K. It's a lot of straight shots, little rolling, a couple overpass bridges. You dip under a final overpass bridge in the last mile, and we'll pull up a clip there. Me in the last mile, kind of struggling to hold pace, but still getting competitive, trying to hold on to 16th place there. That's a really exciting time. If you're having a good race, you got to enjoy it, but you got to push because you could really, you know, hold pace through there, pass a lot of people and run your personal best, and then really enjoy that final turn onto, the final stretch at the finish line. But that's kind of my take on the Boston Marathon, on pacing. I think I covered, we'll do another talk probably on actually training for the Boston Marathon, because it is a unique race. It's unique because it's super competitive. You know, most people have to qualify for the race, running a certain time, as well as the downhill start and the unique rolling hills, the Newton Hills, the changes in weather, the drastic changes in weather from year to year, really make it a unique race, near and dear to my heart. Love the Boston Marathon. Hope your running's going well. Thanks to all the Patreon supporters for really making all these videos possible, as well as all the views on here. Sure to subscribe for more training talks and videos like these. Again, you can check out our training plans at sagerunning.com, link in the description below, as well as up there. Thanks to my title sponsor, Hoka11, for all their support in continuing this running dream. Feel free to comment below with future training talk topics and vote them up. Thanks so much, guys, and see you next time.